everyone, I'm Lorianne. Welcome back to the Toll Tribe channel. Today I plan on filming a very different video. I plan on filming Josiah's 11-month update, but seeing as how Josiah is literally turning a year old next week, I figured it didn't really make sense. What had happened was I filmed the 10-month one on time but uploaded it late, and so everything kind of just got pushed back, and so now I'm kind of behind on that schedule. So what I'm planning on doing is combining his 11 and 12-month update, and my goal is to have it up on his first birthday, so you can look forward to that there. And I'm saying it now because I'm hoping by saying it I will actually follow through, because I won't want to let anybody down. But yes, that is my plan as of now, so you can stay tuned for that next week, and I'm just going to combine the two updates. You already know the topic of today's video because it is in the title. This was a requested video, but it is a concept that I've talked about on the channel before, especially in updates, like the kind of mom I thought I was going to be versus the kind of mom that I am. I thought, since I'm approaching my 1-year motherhood anniversary, that this would be kind of a fun little video to make for you guys, and I'm sure so many moms out there can relate to this concept. I do want to preface this video by saying, though, that I think a lot of the differences in expectation versus reality happen because of like the current environment of the world that we're all living in, and having to adapt to that. Sometimes you just realize that certain things are easier or harder than you thought they were going to be, and so you kind of just like recalculate and go with it. And sometimes things are seasonal, right? Like sometimes you're in seasons of life where you wanted to be one thing, but you just can't be that one thing for the sake of everything else you have going on in that season. So I think that the way you parent also kind of ebbs and flows with just like life, and that's something to keep in mind too. I think a lot of the times we can be really hard on ourselves when our reality doesn't meet our expectation of things, but I think sometimes you have to step back and realize that there's probably a reason for that, and it's not just that like you're a lazy mom. Like there's things going on, and sometimes you have to kind of adjust and recalculate. This video is meant to be super lighthearted. It's not like a mom shamey, a mom judgy video. This is literally just like me talking about like my expectations versus how I actually am. So for starters, I had always heard from older parents, like parents of kids my age, and about the importance of letting them cry it out. It doesn't hurt them to let them cry. Let them cry. They learn to sort it out. They learn to self-soothe. Then they don't rely on you for like everything all the time. And it's good to instill that in them early. If they think that you're always going to come and pick them up, like you'll never have a moment of peace, right? Like that's what you hear a lot as a new parent. And I sure did. I was like, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. That's probably the parenting style that I'm going to adopt for myself, because I want my child to be independent and learn and be able to do things on their own, and I'll always be nearby if they need me, but I don't want to like be hovering over that. And I have to say, that's not that's not really how I am. I mean, more so now that he is a toddler. Like I said before, sometimes you kind of have to adapt your parenting style depending on the season of life that you're in. And right now he is getting to that stage where he is exploring, and so while I have to be nearby because he's a toddler and he wants to put everything in his mouth and touch everything, and I got to make sure that he's safe, I do let him explore. And when he falls, I don't immediately run to him, unless it looks like it was a bad fall. But I kind of let him sort it out, and sometimes I let him react before I react, because you know how kids can be sometimes. If they see your reaction, even if they weren't freaked out, now they're freaked out because they saw your reaction. So I try to like wait to see how he's gonna react before I do. But in the beginning, when he was a newborn, I couldn't let him cry it out. I really thought that I would be able to, and I just couldn't, and I'm not upset about it. I'm not ashamed of myself. I don't regret it. If anything, I wish I held him and snuggled him more, because that first year just goes by so fast. I can't believe that I almost have a 1-year-old. Every time he cried when he was a baby, I went and I picked him up and I held him and I calmed him down, and I might put him back down after that, but I just didn't let him cry it out. Oh my gosh, it just breaks your heart to hear them like scream like that. Even when I would change his diaper and he didn't like it and he would scream, it broke my heart that like I was causing him to feel this kind of distress even though he needed his diaper changed. So I didn't feel comfortable letting him cry it out. Now I know the difference between cries. I know the difference between the just like, I want what I want kind of cry, or like I woke up and I'm a little groggy cry, like where am I? And like the absolute, I need somebody right now. I'm I'm freaked out. I want comfort. I need comfort. I know the difference between those two cries. So if I hear the first one, I kind of let him sort it out. If I hear the second one, I go in and I grab him from his crib in the middle of the night if I have to. It doesn't happen super often. But I just don't feel comfortable letting him like scream and like be stressed out like that. I don't like it for myself personally. It's not to say that it's wrong if you do it. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm a first-time parent. I'll let you know in 20 years if what I did totally messed this kid up. I don't know. None of us know. We're all just figuring it out, right? Also, I never ever thought that I was gonna be like the germaphobe mom. That's just not my thing. I'm not like that in real life. I went to college in the city. I can very vividly remember like holding the subway pole and reading a book with one hand and then licking my finger and touching the subway pole again, as gross as that sounds. I think we all know now in like a COVID world that like you should just never do things like that. The world post-COVID was a wild place. That's all just to say, like, I've always been a little dirt don't hurt kind of person. And so I very much thought that that's how it was gonna be. I have friends, I have family that are like very concerned about germs and new babies, and like you wash your hands, then you sanitize them up to your elbows before you touch their kids. And I respect every mom's level of just like cleanliness with their child. Like, even if you think it's ridiculous, you do it. It's their child. You wanna hold their child, you wanna be near their child. If those are the rules, then those are the rules. And I'm fine with that. I just never thought that I was gonna be like that personally. But again, the environment that we live in and the world that we live in caused me to be very different, especially in the beginning. With COVID hitting the US and like us going into like lockdown periods, literally the week after our child was born, I was forced to be that like total germaphobe, like everything needs to be clean, everything needs to be sanitized mom. Like I had to be, because I needed to protect my new baby. And we didn't know anything about this at first. We didn't really understand how it was spread, or like, you know, if you touch something and then you touched your baby, would my baby now have it? Like, people were leaving their groceries in their garage for like 3 days, hoping that the germs would die before they brought them in the house. And Mike had to work outside the house and he had to take public transportation to get to work. So like I was super paranoid with Mike coming in and out from work and his clothes, and there was a whole routine, and like the whole house would get wiped down and sanitized every day after he got home, and he wasn't allowed to touch anything until he bathed in like the hottest water possible. And even then I was just like, maybe don't touch him like yet. Like I you know, I was crazy at first because I absolutely had to be. So now the third thing, I was really adamant in the beginning that I did not want a lot of toys with like flashing lights or blinking lights or just like anything like that, or that made sounds. I really was like anti that. I wanted like just wooden toys or sensory things, more neutral color palettes or like black and white. And the reason for that is because I had read a bunch of articles about like Montessori style play and like the benefits of that, and how, you know, the flashing toys with the lights, and they're great. They distract your baby, but they don't really teach your baby a whole lot, and then they can kind of be overwhelming. It's like sensory overload to a baby who's like barely can see anything, and then you have this toy that's like flashing and sirens, and it's like, it's a lot. And I was like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. I want to keep this as, you know, low key as possible with the toys. Honestly, the Montessori toys look better in the house. They're like more neutral. They don't conflict with your decor, and I like that too. I'm not gonna lie. I am that parent that gets annoyed that all of the kids' toys are like obnoxiously colored and they just like don't go with anybody's house. They're in my living room. I want them to be pretty. And I also just wanted toys that were gonna just like nourish his imagination and his creativity and his brain. And so I was like, none of that. We're not gonna do any of that. That went out the window pretty quickly. I had to go back to work when my son was 3 months old in the pandemic. I've been working from home. I'm still working from home. And it's just, there are times when you just need your child to be distracted. There are times when you want to sit and teach them things and you want them to learn, but then there are also times where you just want them to be distracted. That's where I am. That's where I've been. You know, it's great. I want him to learn. I want him to be smart, but I also sometimes need to get things done for work so that I can continue to have a job and pay bills. I started off really slowly. Like, he only had maybe 1 or 2 toys that, you know, played sound or had any lights or anything like that. I started off very slow. And it was like that for a while, and slowly we might introduce a new thing. And if we ever got to a place where I found like they were overwhelming and there was too many of them and he wasn't learning enough and they were too distracting, then I guess we would get rid of some of them. And maybe like we would do like what people do with screen time, where you get 30 minutes of screen time a day. Maybe we'd get like, you get this amount of time with battery toys and then the rest you're not. Like, you know, I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, Josiah doesn't even really care that much about toys. He's like just starting to get into it for the most part. He likes anything that's not a toy, a remote control. It's his favorite. That leads me to my next thing, which was screens. I was like, no screens. Babies don't need screens. I'm not gonna have any screens on. We're not gonna watch TV, like none of the things, right? Guess again, I had to go back to work, and guess what I found worked as a distractor very early on? Llama Llama on Netflix. Zaya doesn't actually sit still to watch TV. He really doesn't care about it. He might glance at it in passing, but if you put a TV on and try to get him to sit down, he's full toddler mode right now. Like, he's not sitting down for a TV. It's just not really an interest of his, but I can get him to sit down and watch a solid 15 to 30 minutes of Llama Llama. That's literally the only thing I can get him to sit and watch. So sometimes if I need to get something done without him grabbing at my leg or screaming in the background of a conference call or whatever, I will put Llama Llama on the TV and set him down and hope that it distracts him for 30 minutes. That is the only screen time he gets. He doesn't have a tablet or anything. Oh, the cell phones though, the cell phones, they watch you on your phones and they just like pick that. Like, he grabs our phone and he doesn't know what he's doing. He just does this like he sees us do. It's wild, and it makes you very, very aware of how much you're probably on your phone in front of your child, that they are able to pick up that quickly. So that's something we're working on in the Toll house, trying to put those down and be just like super present when we're with Josiah, so that he doesn't see phones and think that he can touch phones, because he sure loves a phone. But yes, he does not have any of his own screens. He's constantly trying to steal our phones, and the TV isn't a huge interest of his yet. But I do know for sure that while I didn't stick to my no screen policy, that when he does start taking more of an interest in screens, we will absolutely be limiting screen time. And that is like a hard rule, because I had that growing up. Because that was ingrained in my childhood, I'm like more inclined to then, you know, continue that in my child's own upbringing. Another thing, I thought I was gonna be like the homemade baby food mom. Like, I really did. I had registered for like a book of like baby food recipes and like one of those baby food like steam blenders. We never got to have a shower, so we never got it. And of all of the things that we purchased ourselves, that just wasn't one of them that really took priority. We needed like our stroller and like car seat and things like that, so that didn't take priority. I was always like, you know, we have a blender and we have a pot. I can steam and do it that way. Like, I don't need a fancy baby, you know, food maker. But honestly, when he started eating like out of convenience with me, you know, working from home and trying to balance watching him and working and all of the things, I really just kind of dove into convenience. And I did research on just like baby food, but I'm gonna be honest, I trusted a lot of what I saw on the shelves, like the things labeled, you know, organic and like Whole Foods and like all of those things. I trusted that those were safe. And I will say, this is my one regret. I will say, all of the other things, my expectation versus reality and parenthood, I'm okay with where I didn't stick to things and where I maybe, or where I was different or where I fell short. This is the one thing that I really wish that I would have carried out my expectation into my reality, and I didn't, and it's with the food. And that's just because the recent kind of consumer report that came out, talking about the heavy metals in baby foods, found in a lot of them, especially the ones that we think are healthy and good for your child, because that's how they're marketed to us. And it just really upset me to see all of that. And I was just like, how is this not better regulated? Parents just have so much to worry about that we shouldn't have to worry about like the food on the shelves of major retailers being bad for our babies when they're marketed as not only safe but healthy options for your kids, right? I'm like, okay, like I get it, preservatives are one thing, but like heavy metals, lead, arsenic, like all those things, that's a whole other thing. When Mike and I found that out, we pretty much threw out all of the baby food that we had on hand. It felt horrible to throw it out, knowing that there are people that could use it, but at the same time, I didn't feel comfortable giving it to anybody else to give to their child because I don't know how safe it is. Like, I don't know what to believe, but I obviously would rather err on the side of caution. Luckily for us, Josiah is old enough now where he is eating pretty much what we're eating, so I don't really have to worry about giving him purees anymore, but it still makes me feel kind of terrible to know that for 4 or 5 months of his life I was feeding him purees from brands that maybe, you know, weren't so safe for him or weren't the healthiest options. And so, like I said, that's like my one regret. If I could go back in time, I would just make everything myself out of, you know, food that I picked up at the grocery store, organic stuff that I know is safer, and then I know what's being put in it. Lesson learned. Next time around, we won't be doing that. But it just sucks that that kind of is a thing that people have to worry about and think about. And the last thing is something I touched upon in our How We Balance It All video. And it's just that you see on social media, you know, all these other moms, all these other families doing all of the same things for their kids, for their babies, and you feel like you have to do it too. Like, that's just the norm. It's what you do. Like the monthly milestone pictures of your baby. Everybody gets really creative. You know, there's little blankets that you could buy that you lay them down on. I've seen people use cloth and blankets to make elaborate backdrops, and they lay the baby down. There's this one girl that I went to high school with that does that. I mean, they come out stunning. They're gorgeous. Love looking at them. Could never do it. But like, I digress. I had my own thing that I was doing. It wasn't super complicated. It was a letter board. And like, I hated doing it every month. I hated changing out the letters. I hated sitting there. The dogs were always running across my set. I always had to try to get Josiah ready. As he got bigger, he didn't want to lay there. Like, it just was a mess. Couldn't get him to look at the camera, couldn't get him to angle himself right. I needed the right lighting from the window. It honestly was so complicated that it just, like, I hated doing it. That kind of bleeds into other things that I'm also realizing now that I'm planning his first birthday party. I've always been really, really crafty as a person. I love crafts. I did a lot of DIY stuff for our wedding when we got married. So much DIY stuff. Like, literally we had to take like 3 cars filled with like decor and props to the wedding venue before we got married, because I had done so much because I just wanted it to look spectacular and perfect, and I thought that that's just how I was going to be as a mom. And I'm not saying I don't want his first birthday party to look spectacular. I sure do. I'm still over the top and extra, but I'm more inclined to pay somebody else to do it at this point. It's just that I just would rather spend that time with my kid. I'd rather spend that time with my husband. I'd rather be doing something else. I just don't find a lot of joy in crafting. I just feel like it's really time consuming. I don't have time. It kind of just stresses me out knowing that I would have to do all of that extra stuff in a way that it didn't used to. And something I've kind of realized about parenting is, like, if you're miserable doing something and your kid is seeing that, it almost like takes the joy out of it, right? Like, if you're trying to get a picture of your kid because it's like a nice moment that you want to capture to remember forever, but your kids aren't cooperating and you're screaming at them to stand still and take the picture, well, guess what? You just trying to capture the moment with a perfect picture just ruined an actual perfect moment. So that's something I think about when I think about parenting things and like my stress level that I associate with those things. Like, if it doesn't bring me joy and it stresses me out, then I'm not being the best parent that I can be. And so then I want to kind of reverse and find a way for me to, you know, lower my stress level and be a good parent and still get the result that I want. So for the first birthday party, that means recruiting help and hiring and outsourcing projects where I can, so that it's not all on me to try to DIY everything myself. For the monthly pictures, honestly, I stopped doing them after like month 7 or month 8. I just was like, forget it. I take millions of pictures of my kid every day. His monthly milestone pictures don't need to be the same picture laid out the same way. They just don't. So if I just said that and that like hit you in the feels and you're like, yeah, Lorraine, that's exactly how I feel, I'm here to tell you, you don't need to do it just because everybody else is doing it. You can stop. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It doesn't make you a bad mom. It doesn't make you less of a mom. Don't do it. If you don't want to bake homemade cupcakes for the PTA don't do it. Go to the bakery if it makes you happier and takes some time and is more convenient. I just don't believe in running yourself ragged as a mother to prove that you're like a spectacular mother. I don't think that proves anything. It just proves that you're good at running yourself ragged. I don't. So anyway, that's my video on the kind of mom I thought I was gonna be versus the kind of mom that I am. Everybody loves a little expectation versus reality story. I feel like especially now in a world where everything appears so perfect online, it's like nice to have that reminder that like, we're not all perfect. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can leave it a thumbs up so I know that you like these kinds of videos. I can do more things like this in the future. You can always leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos from us in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.